So before we go back to your PowerPoint demonstrative, I want to show you one thing. And before I show it to you, Judge, I'd like to offer State 64 JJ into evidence by stipulation.
That's correct, Your Honor.
64 JJ is admitted at this time.
All right, Sergeant Corbitt, does this appear to be an email from Donna Harvey at gmail.com?
Yes.
Okay, subject, bad news.
Correct.
And it was sent on June 25th of 2013 at about 11 p.m.
That would be GMT or UTC time, so we would need to subtract 4 hours from that to be local time, but yes.
Okay, thank you. So sometime the night of June 25th of 2013.
Correct.
And that was the same day as I believe the plan of action email that we saw yesterday from your PowerPoint, which was sent just a couple of days after Wendy's relocation was denied.
That's correct.
Okay. And so in this email sent about 5 days after Wendy's relocation was denied, from Donna and Harvey to some friends, does it say, "Not in the mood to talk right now, and hope you'll understand. Wendy's hearing for relocation was denied. No chance at the appellate level for an appeal. We are all very disappointed. We'll talk soon, I promise. Love, Donna."
Yes.
Does it appear her understanding is it's denied and there's no chance for an appeal?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, so where we left off yesterday, we went through some of the emails showing Donna Adelson's involvement in the divorce, text messages showing her venting to Charlie Adelson about the divorce. Are you familiar with Luis Rivera's statements to law enforcement in 2016 after his arrest, that he and Garcia traveled to Tallahassee not only in the month of July of 2014 to kill Dan Markel, but also made an additional trip in the month of June of 2014?
Yes.
And were you able to corroborate that from the phone records?
Yes, we were.
Okay, so now I want to go in chronological order then, from the start of the June trip all the way through the July trip when Dan Markel was murdered. How did Garcia and Rivera get to Tallahassee for the June trip?
In a rental vehicle.
And were we able to find the rental contract for that vehicle?
We were, yes.
All right, can you show that to us?
Yes, so this is slide 107. I'm referencing here a rental contract from Comfort Rental Car in Miami. And again, yes, this would be the vehicle that was rented to come to Tallahassee for the June trip.
What date was the car rented?
So looking at the details here, we can see the date out, and I'm looking to the right side of the screen here is June 2nd of 14. And we see at the bottom here the vehicle is due back in 6/5 or June 5th of 14.
Okay, so it was a 3-day rental then.
Correct.
About what time on June 2nd was it rented?
Well, presuming the 24-hour rental periods, as it is due back at 8:50 p.m., then it would have been rented around 8:50 p.m. on the 2nd.
8:50 p.m. on the 2nd?
Yes.
Okay. What type of car did Garcia rent for this first trip to Tallahassee in June?
Again, looking to the right here of slide 107, it is a silver Nissan Altima.
And the contract was signed by Garcia?
That is correct.
Does Luis Rivera's name appear anywhere on that contract?
It does not.
Are there any phone records to show how this rental car was picked up?
Yes.
Did you get location information from Magbanwa's records that night that helped shed some light on that?
We did, and this may be the time to point out, for Mr. Garcia, his carrier was Metro PCS, kind of transitioning into T-Mobile at that time, and we were unable to obtain location records for his handset for the June trip. We do have location information for Ms. Magbanwa and for Luis Rivera, but we do not have any records with location for Mr. Garcia for this particular time frame.
Okay. So what do we see here?
So what we see here is just a map depicting Miss Magbanowa's residence at the time and the location of the Comfort rental car near the airport here. And as I progress to slide 109, this is representing the cell sites that Miss Magbanowa's handset communicated with the evening of June 2nd. And we can see on the right-hand side of this, around 8:25 p.m., her handset was communicating with a cell site that would be near her residence. At 8:34, she's now communicating with a cell site further to the west. And then we see at 8:53 through 8:58, she's communicating with a cell site that would be servicing the area of the airport or Comfort rental car. And this would be consistent with her handset traveling from her residence to the area of Comfort rental car.
And would that put her cell phone then consistent with Comfort rental car around the same time that Garcia is renting that car if there's 24-hour rental periods with that contract?
Yes, and we see here slide 110, again, we're depicting the particular sector that her handset was using by the large red arrow. And we can see that that sector would specifically be consistent with servicing the Comfort rental car. We see she has events from 8:53 through 8:58 on that particular cell site and sector. And as we recall, the rental contract vehicle was due back at 8:50.
Does she stay in that area for a while, or does she kind of immediately return back to her residence?
So what we see next, we saw those events through 8:58, and then we have an event at 9:17, and then another event we see to the right. This is slide 111. To the right side, we see cell sites at 9:43 and 10:01, which will be consistent with her returning to her residence. So she does stay in the area of Comfort for a short period of time.
Okay. Did you look at her records to see who she was talking to during this trip to the car rental and back?
Yes.
Okay. Who was she talking? Okay, I'm sorry. What do we see here?
So this is a summary of the call detail records. Previously, we saw the actual raw records as they come from AT&T. We saw that there was a lot of information on the page. So with our analytical software, we're able to produce these summaries, which allow us to assign names. We can convert the date and time to our local time, and it just makes it easier to read those call detail records. So this is just a summary of the calls for the subjects that you see here for the evening of June 2nd around the time of this rental car.
So who was she talking to on the way to Comfort Rental?
Geico, the 800 number that returns to Geico Insurance.
And is that the first line up on the call detail records we see?
It is, yes.
And does Geico Insurance sell car insurance?
They do.
Now, obviously we see some of the co-conspirators talking to each other here on the call detail records. Do we expect most of these co-conspirators to be talking to each other on a daily basis, given that some of them are family members, some of them are dating, they have relationships outside of this crime?
Certainly.
Okay. Are you going to be walking us through in your presentation today certain time periods of communication between the parties that stood out in this investigation?
Yes.
What causes a particular period of time to stand out?
The particular times of interest would be those that overlap with physical events or specific events in the crime, in the conspiracy of the crime. So this is the evening of the renting of the vehicle that Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera are going to drive to Tallahassee in to commit the homicide. So this seems, in the scheme of things, to my understanding, the first kind of physical doing act of this homicide. And so that would be a relevant time frame to look at.
Okay. All right, so using a timeline, can you walk us through the communication between the parties for this particular significant time, this first car rental for the first trip to Tallahassee for the murder of Dan Markel?
Yes. And so using the timeline, we will kind of look at what's happening as far as Ms. Magbanowa's travels compared to who she's communicating with when. And this is taken from that same exact summary that we just saw. But as I move on here, we see that in the time frame, we saw the cell sites of her traveling to the area of Comfort rental car between approximately 8:25 and 8:53 p.m. is when we see that she has the phone call to Geico.
Okay, was she talking to Garcia at all during that drive to the comfort rental area?
She does not have any communications with Mr. Garcia during this time frame.
Since they don't have communications with each other, could that be consistent with her giving him a ride to the car rental since he is the person who rented the car at that time?
Objection or speculation?
Overruled, the witness may testify based on his analysis of these records.
It is certainly consistent when we don't see communications between two parties that they could in fact be together and have no need to actually call one another.
Okay. They could just not be together and also not talking to each other.
That's correct.
All right. But the reason that this could be consistent with her giving him a ride there is because once she's consistent with that area, it seems that that's the time that the car is being rented.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, who attempts to call Catherine Magbanwa once she is consistent with comfort rental, dropping off Garcia?
So again, at the time frame, her handset would be consistent with the area of comfort rental. We see an incoming call from Charlie Adelson at 8:57 p.m.
After Magbanwa, if she has dropped off Garcia at this point to rent the car, and this car ends up obviously being the one that is driven to Tallahassee to kill Dan Markel, who did she call on the phone at this point after Garcia is dropped off?
So again, from her cell sites, we saw she had an event at 9:17, which was kind of the first indication that she was moving away from the area of comfort rental car. And what we see is that at 9:17:58, she places an outbound call to Charlie Adelson.
So as soon as she's no longer in the area of comfort rental, she's calling Charlie Adelson.
Correct.
How long is that conversation?
A little over 25 minutes.
What time do they get off the phone?
Approximately 9:43 p.m.
Okay, 9:43 in about 25 seconds, it looks like.
Correct.
Right after Charlie Adelson hangs up with Catherine Magbanwa at 9:43 and 25 seconds, who does he call less than a minute later?
Charlie calls the Adelson residence.
Adelson residence. What do you mean by that?
The home phone or landline phone for Donna and Harvey Adelson.
Okay, so this is a landline that presumably they would both use that's located in their house.
Correct.
Okay, and how long does that conversation between Charlie and the Adelson residence last?
Also just over 25 minutes.
Who does Catherine Magbanwa call once she is back in the area of her home?
What we see in just after 10, she calls, text. There's a few communications back and forth here with Sigfredo.
Okay, do Harvey Adelson and Charlie Adelson then talk on their cell phones that night?
Yes, there are two calls, and we can see 10:16 that Harvey Adelson calls Charlie Adelson. At 10:27, Charlie Adelson calls Harvey Adelson.
So this is Charlie and Harvey talking on Harvey's cell phone, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, does Charlie Adelson call or receive calls or messages from Donna Adelson's cell phone that night?
Not that night, no.
So if Charlie Adelson talked to Donna Adelson on the phone that night, then it would have been that 25-minute call to the landline right after he hung up with Catherine Magbanwa, is that right?
Calls for speculation.
Overruled, he is not definitively saying what did or did not occur, what might have been possible. You may continue.
So yes, it is possible that he spoke to Donna, and that would have been on that landline call.
Because then he talks to Harvey on Harvey's cell phone later that night.
That's correct.
Can you walk us through any other calls or texts between any co-conspirators that night?
So we see an additional text between Catherine and Sigfredo, and then Catherine calls Charlie again 10:41 p.m. For about a 23-minute phone call.
Are you familiar with, I want to go back to this landline call. Do you mind going back to the slide right before this? Are you familiar with statements by Charlie Adelson from the 2016 wiretap in this case that we'll hear beginning later today, where Charlie Adelson tells people on his cell phone that he'll call them back on a landline?
Yes.
As someone who's familiar with technical operations of law enforcement and wiretapping, is there a perception that talking on a landline is safer than talking on a cell phone?
Yes, I think that may be a perception.
Okay. Does Charlie Adelson most often talk to Donna Adelson and Harvey Adelson on their cell phones or on the landline?
Most frequently on their cell phones.
Okay. But we see that after he gets off with Catherine McBanois that night, he does call the landline.
That's correct.
Okay, and this is right after the car is rented, the rental car.
Correct.
All right. What percentage of total communication does that Charlie Adelson has with Donna and Harvey is to their landline?
I'll have to move forward here just a little bit. We had talked about the call from Catherine to Charlie. There's a final call or some communication between Ms. Magbanua, Mr. Sigfredo, Mr. Garcia later that evening of the 2nd. And then to get to your question, and this is slide 122, just a breakdown looking at Charlie Adelson's communication records and trying to eliminate all the duplicate events that we saw previously where one phone call may make 3 events in the record. So trying to whittle all those down. What we see in this time period between May of 2014 through August of 2015 is 28 communications with the landline and 1,378 with the combined cell phones of Harvey and Donna Adelson. So a little under 2% of the calls to the residents.
So during that little over a year time span, he only has 28 calls ever with Donna and Harvey's landline. Is that right?
That's correct.
And one of those is that 25-minute call right after Magbanua would have dropped Garcia off to have the car rented.
That's correct.
Are you familiar with Rivera's statement that he did not participate in the car rental for the June trip to Tallahassee?
Yes.
Were you able to corroborate that with the phone records?
Yes. So looking at slide 123, we see Mr. Rivera. His cell sites are in the blue, listed by the blue dots here. We see that his cell sites are consistent with the area of his residence and a significant distance away from the comfort rental car.
Do we have any other evidence that shows who rented the car for this June trip to Tallahassee on June 2nd?
Yes.
What's this?
So there was a citation issued to Mr. Garcia driving that rental vehicle, that Nissan that we saw from the rental contract at Comfort. And this is the evening of June 2nd.
Okay, and what time did he receive this traffic ticket?
9:48 p.m.
So would this have been approximately an hour after 8:50 p.m. and about an hour after, or about maybe 45 minutes, I guess, after Catherine McBanois is leaving the comfort rental area?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of car was he in when he received this traffic ticket?
It is a 4-door silver Nissan.
Okay, so it seems as if as soon as he rented that vehicle, within an hour, he's getting a traffic ticket in the vehicle.
Yes.
And are you familiar with Jeffrey Lacosse's statement that he drove a silver Nissan sedan at the time that this happened?
Yes.
Now, this traffic ticket that Garcia received, this would have received, or it would have created a record in law enforcement databases that he was in possession of this Nissan silver sedan, right?
Correct.
So after he got this traffic ticket, what did he do?
Well, what we saw was an additional comfort rental contract where it would appear that he returned the Nissan and obtained a different vehicle. So this is slide 125, and we can see that on June 3rd, he now has a blue Hyundai Sonata.
And does Rivera's name appear anywhere on that rental contract?
It does not.
All right, and that's on June 3rd, you said?
Correct.
So what can you tell us about the travel of Mr. Rivera's handset on June 4th of 2014?
So what we see, again, just looking at Mr. Rivera's cell sites, represented in blue here, we can see that in the early morning hours of the 4th, on the lower right hand of slide 127 here, we can see he has activity in the Miami area. And as time progresses through the early morning hours until just after noon, he continues to communicate with cell sites that would be consistent with travel from the Miami area to Tallahassee.
And are you familiar with Rivera's statement that he and Garcia did surveillance of Dan Markel at a park near Dan Markel's home during that trip?
Yes.
Was his phone ever consistent with being in a park near his home, Dan Markel's home on Truscott Drive?
Yes, and slide 129 here, we see that, again, the blue dot representing Mr. Rivera's cell site usage is close to Mr. Markel's residence, which is indicated here on the top right by the flag and the address of Truscott Drive. And in addition to his cell site location, we talked previously about having some GPS information from the rental vehicle, and we can see by the square icon there that there is a GPS location for the rental vehicle, again, in close proximity and actually at, I believe that's Winthrop Park there.
And if they're located right there where that blue square is on the map, and the killers are familiar with the type of car that Dan Markel drives, would they be able to see then his ingress and egress from Truscott Drive onto Benton Road?
They should be able to see him passing on Benton Road, yes.
And after this GPS ping near Markel's home, where does Rivera travel at that point?
What we see in the next slide, 130 here, is that immediately after that, we see the cell site usage starting at the top around 3:25 p.m. and continuing through until the late evening hours of the 5th would be consistent with traveling back to the Miami area.
Does he get back in the, looks like the early morning hours of June 6th?
That's correct.
Close 12:47 a.m.?
Correct.
Now, did you look at the communication between all the co-conspirators during this trip to Tallahassee to see if there was any opportunity for information to be relayed?
Yes. So what we see, again, from the time of the rental car on the 2nd through the 4th, again, to answer the question, is there an opportunity for communications to occur between these subjects? This, again, is another summary of the call detail records, just showing the communications between, again, the primary subjects of the investigation.
Okay, and how much were they talking?
So in that time frame, if we go back to kind of our organization here and split out, we can see just numbers of communications or attempted communications. These may be text messages, calls, but just records of communications or attempts. We see that there are a number between Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson, between Charlie Adelson and Catherine Magbanua, and between Magbanua and Garcia. And then as that continues, so for the total number of communications, we can see those between each of the subjects.
Okay, and is Catherine Magbanua the only one who is talking to Garcia or Rivera during that trip on this chart?
That's correct.
And is Charlie Adelson the only Adelson family member who talks to Catherine Magbanua?
That's correct.
And do Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson also have communication or attempted communication?
I'm sorry?
Do Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson also have communication or attempted communication?
Yes.
Okay. Now, going next to June 7th, which would be the day after the killers arrived back in Miami without having killed Dan Markel on this trip. Earlier in the presentation, yesterday, right before we broke in the afternoon, we saw we're back in March of 2014. Donna Adelson tells Charlie Adelson she has to talk to him about something private while she's on the road on the way to Gainesville, and says to erase this text. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
Okay. And then a few minutes after she sends that message, she says the subject of the private call is going to be about Dad's birthday.
Correct.
Dad's birthday gift, actually. Is that right?
Yes.
And she does not tell him to erase that text where she's saying the subject of the private call.
That was correct.
Now, in June, specifically on June 7th, did Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson exchange texts about this birthday present for Harvey Adelson again?
Yes. So slide 137, we see two chats between Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson, where Charlie indicates he's okay, have fun, still working on Dad's B-Day present. And Donna Adelson responds, I know it's a tough B-Day being 70 and all, but I know you'll come through.
Okay, and this still working on Dad's B-Day present would be the day after the killers arrived back in Miami without having killed Dan Markel.
Correct.
Okay, and this birthday present was mentioned back in March. Would that be about 4 months before Harvey Adelson's birthday?
Yes.
All right, going forward to July 3rd. Was there an evite to Harvey Adelson's birthday sent to Wendi Adelson that day?
Yes, a reminder email that was sent on July 3rd.
Okay, and when is the party?
So as we see, kind of focusing in here on the details of this email, the party, a friendly reminder that Donna's event is coming up on Saturday, July 5th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m.
Okay, and was it addressed to Wendi, and we blurred out their names, but her two sons, and listed Wendi and her two sons' last name as Adelson?
Yes.
Was Dan Markel still alive on July 5th of 2014?
He was.
And what last name, or an Adelson, though, is listed as the boy's last name here when this is sent?
And I'm sorry.
Sorry, Adelson is listed as the boy's last name, though, regardless of the fact that Dan Markel is still alive on this date?
That's correct.
And this was about 2 weeks before Dan Markel was killed?
Yes.
Now, Donna is listed as the host here, but was there further evidence in the records that Donna Adelson was not only the host, but was also the person who sent these evites?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
There was at least one other email from the Donna Harvey at Gmail account to Evite inquiring about whether the evites had been sent. The title of the email, I believe, is Have My 14 Invitations Been Sent? She's following up. It is signed by Donna Adelson, following up on whether those evites have actually gone out, and it indicates that basically she's unfamiliar with the process, but she had listed the attendees under the contact section on their form.
So she's the one that's listing the invitees for the contacts for Evite.
Per that email, yes.
And checking to make sure the invitations did get sent through the Evite service.
Correct.
And does she also send a message to another person saying, did you get the Evite? Did you get my Evite?
Yes.
All right. I want to move on to then a couple of days later, July 6th. So would this be the day after the party?
Yes.
Okay, what message was found in the cell bride of Wendi Adelson's cell phone on July 6th?
So this is slide 142. There is a text message from Wendi Adelson to Dan Markel asking if he is in Tallahassee for the dates of July 14th through the 18th.
And she says she wants to know because she wants to know if she can have the kids on the 16th?
Correct.
And he replies, yes, you can?
Correct.
So chronologically, this would have occurred after the trip to Tallahassee in June by the killers, but before the July trip to Tallahassee when Dan Markel was actually murdered?
Correct.
Now, the dates that Wendi Adelson is asking Dan Markel about, what is significant about those dates? What happened on July 15th?
Those dates encompass the rental car and the trip to Tallahassee and ultimately Mr. Markel's death.
Okay. So July 15th was the day that the killers rented the car to come to Tallahassee.
Correct.
And then they were in Tallahassee from the 16th through the 18th,
Correct.
with Dan Markel being killed on the 18th.
Correct.
And where was Wendi Adelson when she sent this message?
So
Oh, thank you. Let me ask you about this. Was there already a schedule in place as to who would have the kids during those dates that Wendi Adelson asked Dan Markel about?
yes, there was. So this is an email from Wendi Adelson's Gmail account referencing the schedule for the children for this particular time. And we can see in the email that Mr. Markel is listed to have the children the 11th through the 17th.
And the date she was asking about is the 16th?
Correct.
And in the top of that email, does it say that she gets the kids every Wednesday anyway?
That she has the children every Wednesday anyway?
Yeah, the last sentence. I imagine you'll have the chance to have them on Wednesday nights during the weeks in May, June, and July.
Yes, that she would imagine to have the chance.
Okay. So what she was asking about seems to already be established in this schedule that was already established in January, 7 months earlier.
Correct.
All right, so where was Wendi Adelson when she sent the message to find out whether Dan Markel would be in town that week?
So that message was sent the morning of the 6th, and the closest cell site or event we have with location, she's communicating with a cell site in South Miami Beach, that would be consistent with the continuum.
And the continuum was the residence of Harvey and Donna Adelson at the time?
That's correct.
And this would be the day after the birthday party?
Yes.
All right, what did Wendi Adelson do after sending that message?
So this is slide 146. There is a calendar entry which created an event for July 7th of 2014, which indicates cancel cable and get Apple ID and Netflix instead.
Okay, obviously this is something a lot of people do, right? Cancel cable and end up getting streaming services.
Yes.
All right, but you can stream from anywhere, right? Is that one of the perks of having streaming over cable?
It would be one of the perks, yes.
Cable is typically, especially back in 2014, was maybe confined to a more fixed spot like a home.
Correct.
And this was on July 7th then. So was Wendi Adelson still living at the Aqua Ridge Drive in Tallahassee at that time?
Yes.
But by the following month, she had relocated to Miami and was no longer in that home.
Oh, that's correct.
All right, moving on to July 11th. What do we see on July 11th?
So on July 11th, again, I'm on slide 148. This is an email from Donna Sue, the Donna Harvey Gmail, to Wendi Adelson regarding a Best Buy service or service for the television.
And what does it say?
It says, if you can't keep Friday, July 18th between 8 a.m. and noon, call to reschedule. It states we took this, the contract we took out is repair in-house if possible. If not possible, they will take it no charge.
And here, Dad is being referred to in the third person. Contract is under Harvey Adelson with Dad's cell phone number.
Yes.
Okay, and it's from Donna Sue at the top.
Correct.
If they need the purchaser, that's my name with my cell phone number, it says. Is that right?
Correct.
And what does Donna Sue say the contract is? Repair in-house if possible. If not possible, they'll take out at no charge. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, did you find any more information about, besides this email from Donna, about this TV repair that was supposed to take place on the morning of July 18th?
Regarding?
The Best Buy repair?
I mean, we know that it occurred, that technicians come to her house that morning.
Okay. And was there also emails between or messages about the TV being in Harvey Adelson's, as it says here? I guess just consistent with this, some Best Buy documents that were consistent with this about the contract being under Harvey Adelson's name that Donna's then communicating to Wendi?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to July 14th. Was this the night before the car rental for the killer's July trip to Tallahassee?
Correct.
All right, were Charlie Adelson and Magbanoa together that night?
They were, yes.
Okay, and how do we know?
We have communication. So then, again, this is slide 151, a summary of communications between Ms. Magbanoa, Charlie Adelson, Sigfredo Garcia. We see some voice activity and a text between them, and then we also have text messages recovered from Mr. Adelson's iCloud account that kind of go along with these. So we see that there is a phone call from Mr. Adelson at 8:53 p.m., and then we find a text message chat that says, "Just tried calling you at 8:56.
And do they appear to meet as far as their phone locations are concerned?
Yes. So this continues on. Ms. Magbanoa basically indicates for Mr. Adelson to come down to her location. She lived south of him in South Florida. He responds or updates with an ETA of 5 men. And then he again updates his location as he's getting closer. We see here on slide 153 at 9:27 p.m. Mr. Adelson has an event with a cell site consistent with Ms. Magbanoa's residence.
And after leaving the area of Magbanoa's residence that night, does Magbanoa contact Garcia?
She does, yes.
Okay, so what do we see here?
So this would be after Mr. Adelson was in the area of her residence. We see events after midnight, 12:42 a.m. and 1 a.m. that would be consistent with him leaving that area and potentially returning to his home.
Okay, and can you tell me about the communication after that?
I can. So what we see July 15th is the rental of the Prius. And to your point, again, and I'll stop here real quick, this is just another summary of the events between our primary subjects. And I'll highlight some of these as we talk about them. So these are events from the early morning hours of after the morning of the rental vehicle. And yes, we see that Ms. Magbanoa makes a number of outgoing calls to Mr. Garcia between 12:48 a.m. and 1:56 a.m.
And who does Garcia call first thing in the morning?
Well, one of his first calls in the morning is to Comfort Rent-A-Car.
And that was the same rental car that he used for the June trip to Tallahassee?
That's correct.
Okay. But also the same one where he had to rent the second car, use the same service again?
That's correct.
All right. Now, did he end up calling another rental car company a little later in the day?
Yes. As we again look at the calls throughout the day, we see that at 4:28 p.m. He makes an outgoing call to Save Gas or Hybrid Rental, another rental car agency.
Okay. And were we able to, now throughout that day, when he's calling Comfort and then calling Hybrid, are he and Luis Rivera in communication?
Yes.
And are he and Magbanoa in communication?
Yes.
All right. Was law enforcement able to find a rental agreement from Safe Gas?
We were. As we look at the rest of the call detail summary, we see here at the bottom, this is slide 160, that there is communication at just after 6 p.m. between Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera. And as asked, we were able to locate the rental agreement for Hybrid Rental. And what we see is at 6:15 p.m. is the timeout for this vehicle. We see that they rented the Toyota Prius.
Okay, and who rented the Prius?
It's in the name of Luis Rivera.
And whose number is listed at the top under the name Brother?
Mr. Garcia's.
Okay. And were their locations also consistent with Save Gas?
Yes, if we look at both Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera's cell site locations, they are consistent with the area of the Save Gas or hybrid rental.
All right, right after this car is rented around 6:15, this car that is the car that's going to make this final trip to Tallahassee to kill Dan Markel, are Magbanua and Charlie Adelson playing phone tag around that time?
Yes.
And did they finally talk on the phone about 15 minutes later at around 6:30?
Yes. So again, we're now looking at a call detail summary. This is slide 163 that shows the communication between them, our subjects, the evening of the 15th. We saw the communication between Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera just prior to the rental car pickup. As you mentioned, there is an attempt between Ms. Magbanua and Charlie Adelson. We see there's a very short duration calls. And then at 6:36 p.m., there is a 10-minute phone call between Charlie Adelson and Catherine Magbanua.
After that call, the 10-minute call with Magbanua, who does Charlie Adelson call within, I guess, about an hour or so after this car is rented and after he talks to Magbanua?
So we can see that starting at 7:30, Charlie Adelson calls the Adelson residence, the Donna and Harvey Adelson residence, for a 22-minute phone call, and then again at 7:54 p.m. for an 11-minute phone call.
Okay, so 22 minutes and then 11 minutes. Charlie
Yes.
Adelson calls the landline that night.
Correct.
Do the phone records show us which parent he may have been talking to on the landline at that time?
We know that there is a phone call from Harvey Adelson's cell phone to the residence later on. So he would have not been at the residence later on in the evening. At this time, there's no indication.
And can you walk us through that?
I can. So this is 8:06 p.m. We see the call from Harvey Adelson to the Adelson residence, about a 12-minute phone call.
Okay, and that would have been, is that about the last phone call from Charlie Adelson to the Adelson residence was at 7:54 p.m.?
Correct.
And they talked for 11 minutes?
Correct.
Okay, so at that point, it's going to be about, is that 8:05 when they get off the phone?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, and then who calls the Adelson residence at 8:06?
Harvey Adelson.
Okay, so it was 1 minute later that he called the Adelson residence.
Correct.
So would that be consistent with Charlie Adelson talking to Donna Adelson at the residence, since Harvey Adelson wouldn't be calling himself at the Adelson residence 1 minute later?
Could be, yes.
Earlier we talked about how rare it is that Charlie Adelson calls his parents' landline. He only calls 28 times total in the, I think it was around 15 months in your time span around the time of this murder. So we saw during the June car rental there was one call to the landline, is that right?
Yes.
And for this car rental there's two calls right after the landline, is that right?
Correct.
Sorry, two calls to the landline right after the car rental, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. So 3 total of those 28 were right after these cars were rented.
Yes.
Next, where did Garcia go after the car was rented?
Well, you have your fourth call to the residence.
Thank you.
At 8:20 p.m.
Okay.
Again, Charlie Adelson calling the residence for a 10-minute phone call.
All right, so 4 total of the 28 then,
Correct.
around the time of the car rentals. All right, what do we have next?
So on the 15th, continuing, we see that there is a number of communications. This, again, is after the time of the rental car. There's a number of communications or attempts between Ms. Magbanua and Mr. Garcia. Those continue through the evening, and they end about 9:30 p.m. This is slide 172. If we look at the locations, slide 173, again, all of those attempts to reach each other ended at 9:30, and we can see that beginning at 9:30, Mr. Garcia's cell site locations will be consistent with the area of Ms. Magbanua's residence.
Did Garcia and Rivera's phones appear to leave the Miami area then the following day, July 16th of 2014?
Yes. And I'll point out also on this slide, in addition to the cell site locations, we did have GPS location for the rental vehicle, which we can also see here on the map by the blue square icon, that the rental vehicle, in addition to Mr. Garcia's cell sites, but the rental vehicle location would be consistent with Magbano's residence as well.
So just like we saw on the June trip, the cell sites that we're getting from the cell records are lining up and are consistent with the Spirion GPS records from these rental cars.
Correct.
Okay. Can you walk us through the travel of the cell phones on July 16th?
Yes, so we see again, slide 175 here, we have cell site locations for this trip for both Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera, and we can see that they're consistent with leaving the South Florida area the early afternoon of July 16th. And as we see through both of their cell site usages, as we continue kind of up through this map, we can see they reach the Tallahassee area in the early morning hours of the 17th.
Now on the 17th, are they ever consistent with being near the Markel residence on Trescott Drive?
Yes, we do see here that both Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera have cell site and sector usage that will be consistent with Mr. Markel's residence. And this is on July 17th in the late morning to early afternoon hours.
Okay, and that cell site, is that right near Winthrop Park where we saw them in the last, for the June trip?
That's correct.
Just a second. I wanted to ask you one more thing about the June trip. Law enforcement didn't know about this June trip before Luis Rivera informed them there was actually another trip to Tallahassee. Is that right?
That's correct.
Your Honor, leading.
Sustained, please rephrase your question.
Did law enforcement know about the June trip before Luis Rivera's statement?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And so once we found out about the June trip, were we able to get Rivera's records? And Rivera had records that showed his locations for both June and July.
That's correct.
But Garcia's records had locations for July, but because it had been so long since this trip, they didn't have locations for June anymore. Is that correct?
It wasn't the delay in getting the records, it was the transition of the companies that those records were unfortunately not available to us.
Thank you. Okay, so we just talked about their locations were consistent with being near Markel's home on July 17th. Are you able to show us the communication on the call detail records between all the co-conspirators on the 16th and 17th during this trip to Tallahassee?
Yes. So again, should be slide 179. We are looking at another summary of the communications between the subjects, and this spans July 16th in the morning through the early morning hours of July 18th.
Okay. And do we have the same pattern here where Magbanoa is the only one contacting Garcia and Rivera, and Charlie is the only Adelson talking to Magbanoa?
That's correct. If we go back to kind of the tally of communications, again, we can see the highest number of communications between Charlie Adelson and Catherine Magbanoa, between Magbanoa and Garcia, and then as the others, as the others have communications as well.
Okay. And these communications, they also cover attempted communications, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And some of these communications may be text, some may be calls, some may be mundane. Some of these people have relationships anyway. We're just showing all the communications that, or attempted communications that did take place.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So I want to focus on the night before Dan Markel's murder, late that night. Using a timeline, can you walk us through the communication that evening on July 17th, going into the early morning hours of July 18th?
Yes. So again, kind of same format here. We see, this is slide 185, we see calls between Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson at 10:18 and 10:29, both of them for just over 4 minutes.
Okay, and what's next?
We see at about 11:40, there is communication between Mr. Garcia and Ms. Magbanua.
Okay, and what happens after that?
Additional communications between Catherine and Sigfredo, and then Charlie calls Catherine just after midnight.
Okay, and is there any more after that?
There is, we see that Ms. Magbanua calls Charlie again at 12:34 a.m. for a short duration call. And then Charlie calls her back at 1:03 a.m.
Okay. And the Charlie calls Donna at 1:02 a.m. Was there no duration on that?
No duration on that.
Okay. All right, so then moving on to later that morning, which is going to be the morning of July 18th when Dan Markel was murdered. What can you tell us about all the co-conspirators' communication that morning between 8 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.?
So again, another call detail summary between those subjects. Here, slide 192, we're referencing the time when the shooting of Mr. Markel occurred. And in combination with the iCloud return with text message content, in the forensic examination of Wendi Adelson's phone, the communication records from the carriers, we kind of have a more complete idea of the communications between these persons the morning of the 18th.
Okay, and the yellow line there shows out what time in the call detail records the homicide occurred.
Yes.
Can you walk us through all the cell phone evidence that morning?
So again, just looking at the communications between our primary subjects, Wendi had the calendar event that for 8 a.m. for fixed TV.
And I want to ask you about that. Did she often have calendar events in her phone?
She did, yes.
And she would often delete those events?
Correct.
All right. When was this calendar event deleted?
I do not know.
Okay. Was it when she was with law enforcement the afternoon of July 18th? Did they take her phone and run a Cellbrite report on it?
Yes. So this extraction occurred on the late evening hours of July 18th.
Okay. And in the Cellbrite, it would have shown that the calendar event was deleted. Is that right?
Correct.
So would she have had to have deleted it before her cell phone was Cellbrighted that evening?
Yes.
Okay. So sometime between 8 a.m. when the event is on her phone and that evening it was deleted.
It could have been deleted before that date.
Okay. All right. So first call to Donna Adelson and Wendi Adelson. Can you show that to us?
Yes. So again, we see at 8:09 a.m. there's a call from Wendi to Donna.
Okay. Let me ask you one thing from the night before. Was it unusual for Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson to communicate or attempt to communicate at 1 a.m. that late?
They're communicate over a pretty broad range of time. I think it was pretty clear that that event was a misdial that he immediately corrected and called Ms. Magbanua, and that's why there was no duration to it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on to that morning, we saw the calendar event, and then does Donna place the first call that morning between the co-conspirators to Wendi?
Wendi calls Donna, let's back up. So yes, Wendi actually calls Donna at 8:09.
Okay. And what's next?
Donna attempts back at about the same time frame. Little phone tag maybe. And then we see a text message from Donna to Wendi again about the Best Buy service.
And she says, they're on their way over now to help with the TV sets in your living room.
Correct.
All right, what's next?
Wendi has a text to Charlie stating, "This is so sweet."
And that was deleted?
Correct.
And would that have had to have been deleted then before the Cellbrite that afternoon, sometime between when it was received at 8:20 and the Cellbrite that afternoon?
Correct.
All right, what's next?
Wendi receives a voicemail from Dan Markel.
Okay, and do you have that voicemail where you could play it for us?
I believe so.
time was that voicemail left for Wendi Adelson?
9:04 a.m.
Okay, what happens after that?
So Charlie calls Wendi, or attempts to call Wendi, at 9:12.
And that's 29 seconds?
Correct.
Okay, what's next?
Wendi texts Dan Markel, stating, "The repairman at my house now. I am picking up the boys at 3 p.m., so your swim idea is a no-go today."
So, do we know exactly what time she listened to that? Was it 9:04?
9:04 was the voicemail.
Do we know exactly what time she listened to that 9:04 voicemail?
We do not.
But it seems she would have listened to it before this text at 9:12.
She does seem to acknowledge the content of the voicemail in this text message reply.
So she heard it sometime between 9:04 and 9:12.
Correct.
Okay. Now, in that message, he mentions he's going to the gym, right? At
He did.
9:15. But from the surveillance videos that we have, by the time he got to the gym at 9:15, were the killers already tailing him?
Appeared to be so, yes.
Okay. And are you familiar with Luis Rivera's statement that they had been tailing him all morning? They followed him from his house to the preschool that morning.
Correct.
All right, so can you walk us through these messages starting at 9:12 a.m. that Wendi Adelson has with Dan Markel?
Yes. So, again, she indicated that the swim idea was a no-go. Mr. Markel responds about his day ending at 4:30.
Meaning that he gets to keep the boys under the schedule until 4:30.
Correct.
Okay.
As again, in this message, he says, "under our schedule." And he continues, "and you had them until 5 last week." And this is at 9:13 a.m.
Okay.
Wendi Adelson responds, "because you needed to food shop." This is at 9:15. Mr. Markel replies, "you weren't making them available until 5.
And at this point, he's already in the Premier parking lot around that time.
Would be correct, yes.
Okay.
Wendi
What did
responds, "if it was 4:30 last Friday, you should have told me that. Why tell me now?" This is at 9:19. And also at 9:19, Wendi receives a call from Charlie. Lasts a little over 18 minutes.
Okay. So at the point where Dan Markel's already at the gym at 9:19, right?
Yes,
And the killers have already followed him to the gym at that point, right?
correct.
And this is per surveillance footage from Premier.
Correct.
At this point, Wendi and Charlie have an 18 and 17 second phone conversation.
An 18-minute and 17-second, yes.
Okay. What happens next after this phone conversation?
So after the phone call started, Wendi would have received the incoming text, "because I was being nice." And then about the time that phone call would have ended, Wendi texts Dan back.
And does she say, "Nice was fun while it lasted. See you at 4:30 today at my house then"?
Correct.
So after this 18-minute phone call with Charlie Adelson, does she seemingly change her stance in the argument? She kind of concedes the argument and agrees with what Dan Markel is asking. He can keep the boys until 4:30.
Correct.
And then within about an hour of this message was Dan Markel killed.
He was shot, yes.
Shot, thank you. Walk us through what happens next.
So there are additional communications. Charlie attempts to call Donna at 9:38. Charlie attempts to call Catherine at 9:57. Return attempt just after. And then Charlie and Catherine talk for almost 7 minutes at 9:58.
Okay?
Charlie calls Wendi 10:06, short duration. Catherine attempts Charlie again, 10:07, 10:08. The return call at 10:09 for about 6 minutes. And that's the last of the communications prior to the shooting.
Okay, is Charlie also that morning playing phone tag with the attorney representing him in the divorce, Stephen Webster?
Dan Markel is.
I'm sorry, Dan Markel, thank you. And did Dan Markel have communication where he's playing phone tag with Stephen Webster?
Yes, this is slide 220, and we see from Mr. Markel's records several incoming, outgoing text or voice attempts with Stephen Webster.
And are they basically setting up a time to talk later in the morning?
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not evidence, calls for speculation.
Sustained as the facts, not evidence, unless you can lay a foundation for this was doing.
Have you reviewed the text in these call detail records?
Briefly,
Did it appear that they were setting up a time to talk later that day?
yes.
Okay. Is the last outgoing communication from Dan Markel 10:34 a.m.?
Yes.
And Dan Markel would have been killed within a few minutes of sending that outgoing message?
Correct.
All right, I want to shift now to the cell phone locations in this case. You walked us through, at the beginning of your presentation yesterday, Dan Markel's locations on the morning of the murder: Trescott, preschool, gym. What can you tell us about Rivera and Garcia's locations that morning?
So again, as you mentioned, slide 222 here, we see the locations that he was. We know his approximate arrival, the arrival of the Prius into Premier Health and Fitness just after 9 a.m. And what we see now up to slide 224, these are the cell site locations for Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera. Again, Mr. Garcia is in orange, Rivera in blue, but these are the first events with location. We have the morning of the 18th, July 18th, and we see that Mr. Rivera and Mr. Garcia's location are both consistent with them being in the area of Premier Health and Fitness.
Okay, and what was the last event with location data that we have for them while consistent with Premier Gym?
It's going to be these that you see here. So 9:58 for Mr. Garcia, 9:46 for Mr. Rivera.
When was their next event with location after these events?
It was afternoon.
Okay, can you walk us through that?
I can. We see, again, Mr. Markel's vehicle leaving the Premier Health and Fitness, 10:38, the Prius traveling just after. And then we see the location information here. This is slide 227. And again, just looking at the cell site locations, Mr. Garcia's in orange, Rivera's in blue. We see that those events we just saw at Premier Health and Fitness are at the top. And the next event we have, you see, is the 12:30 event for Mr. Garcia, where they appear to be on 75 traveling southbound.
So from Tallahassee to around the Gainesville area, there were no events with location.
Correct.
Could that be consistent with them turning their phones off after they left Premier Gym?
It could, yes.
Sometimes when people commit crimes, do they try to turn their phones off during that time?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Sustained unless you can lay a foundation for this particular point, Stephen.
I'll move on, Judge. All right, so let's start at 12:30. Who was the call to 12:32?
So this is a summary of Mr. Garcia's records for the morning of the 18th. And what we see is his first outgoing call, which happens to be that same event we have with location at 12:30, was to Miss Magbanowa.
Even though the call appears to be a short duration, is there any evidence that it went to voicemail or Magbanowa did not answer the call?
There's no evidence it was not received.
What do the phone records indicate about the status of Garcia's phone from the last event at Premier to the time he called Catherine Magbanowa at 12:30?
Well, we do see at 12:18 and 12:19, we see two incoming calls that do not create locations, which means they did not actually reach the handset. The handset was not in communication with the network. So we know, at least for those times, that the handset was not, again, in communication with the network. power down, battery dead. However, and then we also see these short codes, this 122 and 129, that are coming into the phone at 12:29, and these are consistent with notifications to the handset about missed calls or voicemails or other things. So those events would be consistent with that phone being powered back on or returning to the network at about that 12:29 time frame.
Okay. And once it comes back on at 12:29, the first call is to Magvanois?
Correct.
Switching gears here, I want to talk about Wendi Adelson's locations during that morning and early afternoon time frame when Dan Markel was murdered. Are you familiar with Wendi Adelson's statement about her locations on the day of Dan Markel's murder and the route that she took on July 18th after her TV repair appointment?
Yes.
Okay, can you walk us through that?
So again, we see her residence here at the time, the Aqua Ridge Way. This is slide 230. Again, just the flag there indicates the area of her residence.
So is Aqua Ridge kind of off Centerville Road, north of I-10?
Yes.
All right. Based on the location info from her call detail records, can you determine the approximate time she encountered the roadblock on Trescott Drive?
I can, yes.
Okay.
So we also have a receipt from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits that is time-stamped at 12:49 p.m. on the 18th. So looking at communication records with location, we see that she begins a voice call at 12:31 p.m. Her cell site is listed as the purple dot and starts at 12:31. We can see, this is slide 232. As we come down to about the middle here, she has an event at 12, or communication during this phone call with a cell site at 12:35, and then that call ends at 12:47. So we see again that will be consistent with her leaving the area of her residence sometime around the 12:31 time frame, and being in the area of, and this 12:47 cell site could be the ABC Liquors as well. We know the receipt time's just a couple of minutes later. So with that, and to slide 233, with that receipt being at 12:49, the voice call ending at 12:47, she would have passed by Mr. Markel's residence just prior to that.
Okay, meaning maybe somewhere around 12:35 to 12:45.
Correct.
Did Dan Markel have he and Wendi Adelson's children the morning of July 18th?
I'm sorry?
Did Dan Markel have the children the morning of July 18th and he took them to school that morning?
He did, yes.
Okay. Looking at Wendi Adelson's call detail records, were you able to see her calls, who they were from and to, and the times on July 18th of 2014?
Yes. So slide 234, a summary of her calls that morning. And we can see in the highlighted sections here calls that would have been made or received after the time that she would have passed by the Markel residence.
When she encountered that roadblock, the crime scene tape with the police cars behind it in front of the Markel residence, did she attempt to call Dan Markel to make sure he or the kids were okay?
She did not.
Did she attempt to call the children's daycare, creative preschool, to make sure that they made it to school and there wasn't some type of incident?
She did not.
Did she attempt to call 911 or law enforcement to see what was going on, since her children had been staying on that street?
She did not.
Did she just continue to the liquor store and then on to lunch?
Correct.
Are you familiar with the area of Thomasville Road and I-10 where the restaurant Mosaic used to be, which was the restaurant she went to lunch at that day?
I am.
Were there any liquor stores in that area back in July 2014?
There were, yes.
Okay, can you walk? Thank you.
So what we see, slide 237, again, we are showing the residence, her residence at the time on Aqua Ridge, and her ultimate destination, which was Mosaic off of Thomasville Road. So clearly the next slide here shows, as calculated by the mapping software, the most direct route between those two locations as far as where she was heading.
And then were there any liquor stores in the area of Mosaic at that time?
There were. So at that time, there was Publix Liquors on Thomasville Road there, very close to Mosaic. There was Market Square Liquors off Thomasville, and also another ABC location a little further north on Thomasville Road.
Would those Publix and Market Square Liquors be a lot closer to Aqua Ridge and Mosaic than the one she ultimately went to?
They would, and this is slide 242, which shows the route she ended up taking versus what is calculated as the most efficient route. We can see there's a difference of about 9 minutes longer to go the other way.
So she went 9 minutes out of the way to go to the ABC Liquors next to Dan Markel's home.
Correct.
All right, switching gears again. July 18th, the last slide that we saw of Garcia and Rivera's locations was around the Gainesville area when the phones were powered back on and the 12:30 call was made by Garcia to Catherine McVanois. Does the next map show Garcia and Rivera continuing to come back down to the Miami area?
Yes, we do see here slide 244 as another large time frame without location information, but we see in the late afternoon, early evening hours, the use on the phones returns, and we see that they are getting into the South Florida area.
Okay, once back in Miami, did they stop somewhere where they were caught on video?
Yes, so we have an ATM withdrawal from Mr. Rivera. We can see that that occurred at 6:46 p.m. and through the records, we were able to determine the location of that specific ATM where that transaction occurred in Pembroke Pine.
Okay.
So slide 247 shows the location of the ATM by the yellow flag in the middle. The, again, blue and orange circles represent the cell sites their handsets were using at the time, and we can see that their locations are consistent with the area of that ATM around the time of that transaction.
All right. Moving on to July 18th. Okay, thank you.
So from that ATM, there were also surveillance images obtained of Mr. Rivera driving, Mr. Garcia in the passenger seat, and again of the green Prius.
And then after that, was Garcia in communication with Catherine McVanois that evening?
Yes.
Was McVanois also in communication with her friend Yendra Mascaro that evening?
Yes. So here again, slide 250 is the summary of the communications at that afternoon and evening. And we can highlight here several communications between Ms. Magbanua and Mr. Garcia. And in addition to those, we do see communications between Ms. Magbanua and Ms. Mascaro.
And was there evidence that Magbanua went to Rivera's house to meet up with Garcia on the night of July 18th?
There was. As we see again, Ms. Magbanua's cell sites represented here in red. She has events up to 8:46 that are consistent with the area of her residence. And we can see as we move across the slide here, 253, events at 9:20 and 9:23, and ultimately 9:42 that will be consistent with her traveling away from the area of her residence and toward the area of Mr. Rivera's residence.
And are you familiar with Magbanua's statement that she dropped her kids off at Yendra Mascaro's residence for the night that night, on the night of July 18th?
Yes.
And whose residence is on the way to Rivera's?
Ms. Mascaro's.
And is Magbanua then at Rivera's residence by around 9:42 p.m.?
I'm sorry, you have a question.
Your Honor, there's a question from the jury.
You can use the bathroom.
Thank
The
you.
bailiff will take you to the restroom. Everyone can be seated. Believed to accommodate the issue that we discussed previously at sidebar about scheduling. We'll need to stop this morning at 11:30, but once the jurors come back out, we'll at least get another hour of the testimony in. If the defendant needs to use the restroom, bailiffs, please take her at this time. Everyone can be seated. Ms. Dugan, you may continue with the examination of Sergeant Corbitt.
Okay, so the night of July 18th was Catherine Magbanwa's cell phone consistent with Rivera's residence by around 9:42 p.m.?
Yes, just after that. We see from the call summary, the last communication between Ms. Magbanwa and Mr. Garcia was at 9:46 p.m. And what we see as her events at 9:46 and 9:47 are very consistent with Mr. Rivera's residence. So that kind of coincides with the end of their back and forth communication, with her location becoming consistent with Rivera's residence, where Mr. Garcia's location was also consistent.
Okay, and could that be consistent with her communicating with Garcia? That communication ends once she arrives at Rivera's residence, where Garcia and Rivera are also there.
Correct.
Now, after being there for a little while, does Catherine Magbanwa communicate with Charlie Adelson?
She does, and again, back to the summary, we see that there is an outgoing call from Mr. Adelson at 10:12, very, very short duration, and then Ms. Magbanwa calls Mr. Adelson back at 10:20 for about a 2-minute phone call.
And tell us about Catherine Magbanwa's location for that 10:20 call to Charlie Adelson.
So what we see, the 10:20 and 10:22, is the last times that her location is consistent with the area around Mr. Rivera's residence.
Were we able to find any other evidence of her and Charlie Adelson's plans for the night of July 18th?
Yes, and again, that was slide 257 we just spoke of. This is communication from Mr. Adelson's iCloud, and the afternoon and evening of July 18th, where she asked, how's work been, hon? He says, been busy. And then later, about to start a big case, which she acknowledges.
Okay, and did they discuss their plans for that night?
They did. 8:22 p.m., she texts, you're still at work. Mr. Adelson, Charlie Adelson, responds, just finishing. I'm not really feeling good. Maybe we can just hang at my house.
And that message from him is at 8:23 p.m. to Catherine Magbanwa?
That's correct.
Okay, and he says he's not feeling good before she comes to his house.
Correct.
All right. Are you familiar with a call that Wendi Adelson made while at TPD in front of TPD investigators to inform Donna Adelson of Dan Markel's shooting?
Yes.
And was that call made by Wendi Adelson to Donna Adelson at 7:04 p.m.?
Yes, there were actually two close together there.
Okay, thank you. Which co-conspirator did Donna Adelson call after that?
So looking at Donna Adelson's locations and communication, there is a text message from Donna to Charlie, a chat that says, call us ASAP.
Okay, and what about after that?
So what we see is looking at the combined location information from both Donna Adelson and Harvey Adelson's cell phones, their locations. We see that they are consistent with leaving the South Beach area around or a little before 8 p.m. and beginning to travel north. We see locations here on this slide through about 8:29 p.m. And if we continue, we see events at 8:35 p.m. again in the North Miami area, and then we don't have any other usable events with location until 10:53, at which point they're in the north area down here.
Okay. Can you go back to just the slide right before this? Okay, so she receives a call from Wendi Adelson around 7:04 p.m. She's in touch with Charlie Adelson by she's attempting to get in contact with him by around 7:12. And within an hour, they are leaving South Beach and headed north in Miami.
Correct.
They being Donna Adelson.
And Harvey Adelson,
And Harvey
yes.
Adelson. Thank you. All right, so can we go to your next slide? You said that their last cell phone communication with location data was in North Miami at 8:35 p.m. and their next event with location after that was at 10:53 p.m. Are you familiar with Catherine Magbanwa's statement that Charlie Adelson told her that his parents had just been at her home the night of Dan Markel's murder before she arrived at the home?
Her home or his home?
I'm sorry, his home, Charlie Adelson's home.
Yes.
Charlie Adelson's parents had just been at Charlie Adelson's home before Magbanwa arrived that night.
Correct.
Okay. Is Charlie's home located between the location we see there for the cell site at 8:35 and the location for the cell site at 10:53?
Yes, we see here the location referenced by the flag of where Mr. Adelson's residence was at the time.
Is there evidence in the phone records that Donna Adelson went to Charlie Adelson's home on the night of Dan Markel's murder?
So there is another communication from Miss Donna Adelson at 8:59 p.m. stating outside your house.
Outside your house, and she's sending that message to Charlie Adelson, is that right?
Correct.
What can you tell us about her locations that night and how long she could have spent at Charlie's residence after sending this message?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Calls for speculation.
Overruled. He may answer based on his analysis of the records. However, Sergeant, you are not to speculate or offer any opinions beyond anything that you have not directly researched through these matters. You may answer the question.
Yes, sir. So the question asked of me is it possible for, given the cell site locations and times, is it possible there was a period of time where Donna and Harvey could have stopped at Charlie Adelson's residence? So to do this analysis, I looked at the events that we had with usable locations, and we see that there is this 6-minute phone call, and this is the 8:35 location we saw in the previous slide. But we see this phone call actually begins on the cell site in the bottom of this slide, which should be 263, and it ends on the cell site at the top. So to conduct an analysis of potential time between points, we need to establish a point to start measuring from. So my estimation of the approximate handset's location between these two cell sites for this phone call is approximately the area of that 832 little call out here in the middle. So that is the point that I started, again, with based on these two phone call, or the beginning and ending cell sites, estimated that the handset was approximately in the area of that marker at 832. Same thing for the ending phone call, or the next phone call that we had at 10:53. We see the cell site that it begins on and the cell site that it ends on a little further north. And so that will be consistent again with the handset continuing to travel along the area of the turnpike. And for our ending time here, I again estimated the location of the handset to be where that white call out box is at approximately 10:53 p.m. So with those 2 points and using the Esri route planning tool, Esri is the mapping software that we use, it tells us that that travel should have taken approximately about an hour and 4 minutes. And what we see is between 8:32 and 10:53 is actually 2 hours and 21 minutes. So the distance traveled is not consistent with the time consumed.
You spoke about Esri. Is that also the how Department of Transportation estimates mileage as well?
Yes, if you go to the official Department of Transportation site to get mileage for business travel, they use the same software.
What can you determine about when Donna Adelson would have reached Charlie Adelson's residence according to this estimated travel time?
So if we look at this, and again, we see the area of Charlie Adelson's residence, we have the message at 8:59 that says outside your house. Charlie responds to that about 20 minutes later with 10 men, 10 minutes. So again, using the same route planning, we see that that should have taken approximately 25 minutes to travel from our 8:32 starting point to Charlie Adelson's residence. And so that would have put the estimated time of arrival at his residence 8:57, and the text message is sent at 8:59. So that would be pretty consistent.
So the text message time is consistent with the estimated time it would take to get from the last known location to his house.
Correct.
And in that text message, she says, outside your house to him.
Correct.
And then he gives her an estimated amount of time before he'll be at his house, 10 men.
Correct. And what we see looking at Charlie Adelson's locations, the 9:19, when the text message is sent, we can see the cell site that his handset is using. As we continue down slide 268, we can see that he has communication at 9:21, and then the next cell site he has is, or cell site time he has is 9:40, and that 9:40 time he has become consistent with the area of his residence. So he reaches his residence sometime between 9:21 and 9:40. If we look at the 9:19 time of the text message, that 10 minutes is about correct for when he would arrive home.
So he says he's 10 minutes when he's about 10 minutes away en route to his house.
Correct.
After receiving the outside your house text. Is that right?
Correct.
And what do we see here?
This is just a close-up of that, again showing the cell sites when he would be consistent with his residence, arriving sometime before 9:40.
And where was Donna Adelson's next event with actual location data after she said she was outside Charlie Adelson's house and he responded 10 men?
Again, the next event that we have is the 1053 events, looking at their combined records. Is the next usable location event that we have. So if we look at the time that it would take to travel from Charlie Adelson's residence to that point, we see that based on the route planning, approximately 48 minutes. And again, the actual travel time based on those cell site usages was 1 hour and 54 minutes. So we have about an hour of unaccounted for time.
So it took her 1 hour and 54 minutes to travel to the 1053 location from North Miami, which left 1 hour and 6 minutes unaccounted for.
This would be the travel time from Charlie Adelson's residence
Thank
to
you.
that 1053 point. Did take 1 hour and 54 minutes, which was estimated to only take 48.
So how long could she and Charlie Adelson then have overlapped at his house during that time?
The maximum would be approximately 1 hour and 6 minutes.
And that would be including the time that she would have been waiting for him to arrive?
It would, yes.
Okay. So let's say she waited 10 minutes or so for him to arrive. Actually, he sent it 20 minutes after he received the text, right?
Correct. Charlie's response to Donna was about 20 minutes after she had texted outside your residence, and that indicates a 10-minute estimated time of arrival. So about 30 minutes would be probably the shortest that she would have waited, but you still have a little over a half hour of overlap.
Okay, thank you. So total amount of time, 1 hour, 6 minutes, and they could have spent about 30 minutes or so together during that time at his residence.
Could have, yes.
What else do you know about Donna Adelson's travels that evening?
So we have an additional chat later on.
Does he check back in with her to see if she got there okay?
Yes. At 11:56, Charlie texts, "Did you get to your hotel okay? Love you." She responds, "Thank you for asking. We have it on MapQuest. Hilton Inn on International Drive. We should arrive at 1:25 a.m. Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning." So again, looking at the point of the 1053 estimated location to the location she states she's going to, we see that should have taken about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and which would have made the arrival time around 1:13. Her stated arrival, estimated arrival was 1:25. So again, these are pretty close.
So no large amount of time unaccounted for during that journey.
That's correct.
The large amount of time that you have unaccounted for where she says she's outside Charlie Adelson's house is from the 8:35 spot to the 10:53 spot.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to do this drive that Donna Adelson took from North Miami to the 1053 location on the night of July 18th?
I did, yes.
And when did you do that drive?
I did that July 18th of this year.
And was that on a Friday night this year, just as her drive was on a Friday night in 2014?
Yes.
And on the same date, July 18th?
Correct.
Can you tell us about that drive?
I simply traveled to that area, to the area of that first estimated location at 8:32. I started an exit south of that so that I was at traveling speed, and I traveled to Charlie Adelson's residence. I noted the time and mileage that it took me to get there, and then I traveled from Charlie Adelson's residence to the 1053 spot, just to make sure that the roadways, all of those which have not changed, allowed for me to get off the turnpike, get back on, continue travel, and about how long it took me to do it.
Were you able to easily get off the exit for Charlie Adelson's house and then get back on again?
Yes.
And was the time it took to drive from Donna Adelson's 832 location in North Miami to Charlie Adelson's residence consistent with the estimated time?
It was. I was within just a few minutes.
Ms. Kappelman just reminded me, you said it was on the same day. Did you also do it at the same time of day?
I did, yes.
Okay, so Friday evening around between 8:30 and 11.
Yes, within just a couple of minutes of 8:32. It was a little hard to gauge my travel time to get to that exact point. Might have been off a minute or two when I crossed that specific point, but it was very, very close to the exact time of day.
And was the time it took to drive from Charlie Adelson's residence to her 1053 location consistent with the estimated time on Esri?
It was, yes.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the next day, July 19th. If you could walk us through the morning after the murder of Dan Markel, where's Charlie Adelson located at that time?
Charlie Adelson has locations consistent with his residence.
And what can you tell us about the communication from Mag Banwell's phone that morning?
I can. So first we looked at her locations, and we recalled that we had that after 10 p.m. Cell site location where she was leaving the area of Mr. Rivera's residence. And actually the next locations that we have for her is the morning of July 19th. And we see again, this is slide 274, and we can see that her locations beginning at 9:44 would be consistent with her traveling south from the area of Mr. Adelson's residence to the area of either her residence or Mr. Rivera's.
Now, once or before this 9:44 a.m. Call, did she have some calls the night before that were routed to voicemail?
Yes, that were not, they did not reach the phone, yes.
What was her last location then before the locations we see here? Was it the 10-20-something location we saw from the night before when she's leaving Rivera's residence and talking to Charlie Adelson?
Correct.
Okay. And in the text messages between her and Charlie Adelson that night, she was planning to go over to his house that night because he wasn't feeling well.
Correct.
Okay. So looking at this slide, does it appear that her phone is then the first active location, or the first active event with location we have? She's coming southbound from Charlie Adelson's residence that next morning.
Correct.
Are you familiar with Catherine Ragbanoa's statement that she spent the night at Charlie Adelson's home the night of Dan Markel's murder, and the next morning she took the money that he gave her for the murder to the area of Rivera's residence?
Yes.
Was there evidence of that in the phone records?
So what we see, again, back to your initial question as far as the cell phone or the call activity, we're looking at the summary of calls in the morning of July 19th. And we see those events that we saw on the map, consistent with her travel south. She is attempting to call Mr. Garcia. So we have a number of outgoing calls between 9:44 and 9:46, including a text message where she's trying to reach Mr. Garcia.
When she can't reach Garcia, does she start trying to call some friends of his to try to get a hold of him?
Yes, so immediately after that, at 9:47, she makes an outgoing call to Anthony Ortiz.
Does she also try to call Luis Rivera that morning to find Garcia?
She did not.
Okay. Does the attempted communication with Garcia stop at 10:31 a.m.?
Yes, so again, our first set of calls here, she's trying to reach Mr. Garcia. She's unable to. She calls Mr. Ortiz. And now what we see starting at 9:49, Mr. Ortiz is attempting to call Mr. Garcia. Luis Rivera is now attempting to call Garcia. And it starts this flurry of back and forth phone calls with Luis Rivera and Anthony Ortiz trying to find Mr. Garcia, or trying to reach Mr. Garcia. And that continues through about 10:20 in the morning.
Okay, so Magbanoa's calling Garcia's friend Ortiz. Ortiz is trying to call Garcia, and Ortiz also calls Rivera to try to get a hold of Garcia.
That is correct.
Okay. Eventually, do all of these attempted calls to Garcia stop, and at what point?
Well, they certainly tame down. What we see for the first time is at 10:20, so we've had this period of time where everyone's trying to reach Mr. Garcia. Catherine Magbanoa gets a call from Luis Rivera from his actual primary phone number, and they talk for about 1:40 minutes. So after that, then we see that Ms. Magbanoa communicates with Mr. Rivera a couple of times. She does again try to get hold of Mr. Garcia, but all of that concludes at about 10:30 in the morning.
And was there any evidence as to why there wasn't location data for Garcia that morning, and why no one can get a hold of him?
He had, dumped his phone. He had.
Objection, Your Honor, facts not in evidence.
Stand, please establish the foundation for the witness to testify to this.
What could you tell from his phone records, the evidence in this case, about why no one could get a hold of Mr. Garcia?
So Mr. Garcia's records indicate that in the early morning hours of the 19th, that phone left the network, was no longer in communication with the network. There are a number of inbound calls that never reach the handset. They do not produce location information or durations, so his phone is not in communication with the network. And that continues through the end of the records. That phone never returns to service, never makes or receives an actual phone call from that morning of the 19th through the duration of the records that we have.
What can you tell us about the locations of Rivera and Magbanoa at 10:31 and the time period after that, once all of these attempted communications stop?
So again, we have the flurry of communications. That last call is at 10:31 a.m. And if we look at Ms. Magbanoa's locations at 10:31, she is consistent with Rivera's residence, and Mr. Rivera's cell site locations are also consistent with his residence.
And are you familiar with Rivera's statement that he was able to find Garcia that morning at a girl's house and brought him back to Rivera's residence?
Correct.
Now, when is the next communication on Catherine Magbanoa's cell phone after that with location data?
The next that we see is at 11:23 a.m.
This is about 50 minutes later?
Correct.
All right, and is her location at 11:23 a.m. consistent with Mascaro's residence?
It would be consistent with the way to Mascaro's residence.
Okay, thank you. Could this be consistent with her then leaving Rivera's residence after a period of time and heading back towards Mascaro's residence to pick up her children?
It could be, yes.
All right, switching gears again. Were you involved in securing a wiretap of some of the suspects in this case back in 2016?
I was.
What is a wiretap?
A wiretap is an active way for law enforcement to be able to gain information or intelligence. Everything that we've talked about in the historical records are just that, historical. We're getting records that already existed and having those provided to us. A wiretap is an ongoing intercept where we are able to, in real time, see the calls that are being placed, the outgoing, inbound, durations, all of those things, in addition to the content of most of those. So text message content and voice content, we're actually able to listen to those calls in real time while they're occurring. So this is a real-time, ongoing, active monitoring of the communications.
In order for a wiretap to be in place, does there have to be an order signed by a judge? That order has to be sent to the phone carrier so that the calls can be monitored by law enforcement.
Correct.
Were we able to monitor the content of the calls between the subjects in this case back in the time that these events happened, back in June and July of 2014?
No, again, we were investigating after the fact. All of that was historical. The carriers do not retain the content of voice calls. They don't record everything that you say and make it available to us. So we had no option to listen or know the content of those communications back then, outside of what we recover in text messages.
Okay, so the wiretap in this case is during the investigation, once law enforcement had identified the identity of these subjects and was trying to listen to see whether they talked about the crime.
That is correct. It is prospective. It is ongoing, real time.
All right, can you explain to the jury what type of equipment is needed for a wiretap?
Well, we use a variety of equipment. There is carrier-based equipment. They have equipment that is able to basically mirror those phone calls, that traffic, and provide it to law enforcement. We have equipment, computer servers that are able to receive that communication and then provide it to monitoring stations, which are essentially laptops. We have headphones and software that allows us to see this information. It decodes the information that is sent to us from the carrier. So we can see in real time, it pops up with the time of the call, the phone numbers, cell site locations sometimes, and other information. And if it is a call that has audio, then there's an indication that there's audio, and we're able to actually listen to that through the headphones.
Does the software give the listeners, law enforcement, the ability to stop and start the recordings?
It does, yes.
And are synopsis of the recordings done by law enforcement?
Yes.
Is there any involvement by the actual phone carrier, like the company?
There is, yes.
Is monitoring of the calls done live and in real time?
It is.
And do the people who are monitoring these intercepts have to go through a certain type of training in order to do that?
They do. They have to go through what we call minimization training. The interception of communications requires that non-relevant or communications that are not pertinent to the actual crimes be minimized or not listened to. So we call that minimization training, and everyone who listens to or has opportunity to hear any audio from the wire has to go through that training.
Okay, and are the people monitoring it also thoroughly briefed on the case?
They are. Part of that training is a requirement to read the affidavit that was authorizing the wiretap and to get a briefing from the case agents so that they know in great detail all the elements of the case so that they're able to detect during the phone calls if that conversation is actually relevant to some part of the investigation. They need to know financial things, relationships, hierarchy, those kind of things. So again, they are briefed by the case agent and they're required to read the documents.
If the phone conversation is not relevant to the crime or is privileged in some way, is there a mechanism to stop that recording by law enforcement?
Yes.
And is that the purpose of that to protect people's privacy if they're not talking about something relevant to the crime?
Yes, the purpose of that is to allow us to minimize those parts of the conversation that are not pertinent to the crime and in compliance with the order.
Is minimization a choice by law enforcement, or are they required to minimize irrelevant portions?
It's a requirement.
Okay. Are you limited in time, or is law enforcement who's listening limited in time, in the time that they have to decide whether what they're listening to is relevant to the crime or not?
There are a number of things that go into that. Time is one of them, yes. We have a guideline for how long we should listen to make that determination, and then we have some guidelines for how frequently we can come back and check the ongoing conversation to see if that conversation has turned criminal or turned into something relevant to the investigation.
So the officer can then go back in and listen in again to see if they are now talking about something relevant.
Correct. We call this spot checking.
And can the listeners of the call tell if a law enforcement officer is doing that?
The listener of the call, I'm sorry?
Can we, as the listeners here in the courtroom, tell if an officer is doing that?
Yes. In certain versions of the software, there's an audible tone to indicate that it's been minimized. There's printouts from the software that tells us when audio was listened to and when it was minimized. And there's just absences in the conversation, blank spaces where that recording did not occur.
And is the portion of the call, so the portion of the call that's minimized then is not recorded?
Correct.
When listening, though, and trying to decide whether something's relevant or irrelevant, are law enforcement officers also on the lookout for suspects trying to mask the meaning of what they're saying in case law enforcement's listening? Maybe they are talking about the crime, but they're using words that don't sound criminal in order to do it.
That's correct.
Is that quite common?
It is, yes.
Which phones were tapped in this case?
Mr. Charlie Adelson's and Ms. Catherine Magbanowa's.
And was that Charlie Adelson's phone number ending in 9223 and Magbanowa's phone ending in 1312?
That's correct.
Okay. And who supervised the wiretap in 2016 in this case?
A number of supervisors. I supervised from a technical standpoint to make sure that the information was being received and operating functionally. The case agent supervised the investigative standpoint. It's a representative from the state attorney's office to monitor the legal side of things, and we have to do periodic reports or updates to a judge during the ongoing wire, alerting him of our progress and seeking authorization to continue. So there's a good bit of oversight.
And who keeps or maintains the recordings of the wire calls?
A designated officer.
At TPD?
In this case, yes.
And those recordings, are they stored in a secure manner at TPD?
Yes.
On a few different recorded conversations throughout the wiretap, are you aware of statements made by Charlie Adelson that he does not know who Tudo is?
I am, yes.
In your review of Charlie Adelson's iCloud, like his text messages in the iCloud, were there messages where he and Magbanowa are having conversations about mundane things, but he says Tudo to her? He refers to Garcia as Tudo.
He does, yes.
So the phone records indicate that despite what Charlie Adelson says on the wire, he did know Garcia's nickname was Tudo?
That would be from the iCloud return, but yes.
Okay. All right. I want to move on to the bump in this case, which the wire calls came after the bump. Can you tell us the date and time of the bump in this case?
So these are the records of Donna Adelson's communication during that time frame. This is 4/19 of 2016, and what we see is the bump happened at 1:47 p.m.
Who was Donna Adelson's first call after the bump? And meaning the bump is when the undercover agent approached her on the street?
The first call was to Charlie Adelson.
Did she call Wendi Adelson or Harvey Adelson during that time?
Immediately after, no.
Did she call Catherine McBanois at any point?
No.
Anyone else associated with this case besides Charlie Adelson?
No.
And when was her first call to Charlie Adelson after the bump?
2:09.
So about a little over 20 minutes later?
Yes.
All right. Was Donna Adelson detained and charged in this case? I believe it was on November 15th of 2023.
Yes.
And we'll get into the details of that later, but what I want to talk about now is whether we were able to, on the day that she was detained and charged, was her cell phone taken by law enforcement and a cell bright done on that cell phone?
Yes.
And in the cell phone that was in her possession, was there evidence that Donna Adelson and Wendi Adelson talked about Charlie Adelson's trial, his November 2023 trial, and the verdict as it was happening?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Charlie Adelson's testimony in his trial that Garcia and Rivera killed Dan Markel on their
Objection, Your
own?
Honor. Facts on evidence, counsel's testifying.
Sustained as the counsel testifying, please establish the foundation for your question.
Okay. Judge, may we go to sidebar, please? Thank you.
At this time, we are going to take our lunch break for this morning. Once again, I'm going to instruct you not to discuss this case with each other or any other person. Also, as well, do not look at any other outside information or news on this matter. We will resume with the trial this afternoon at 1:20. Please be back by 1:15. Enjoy your break. Everyone can be seated. During the break concerning the evidentiary point for which this testimony is seeking to be admitted, we'll review while we're on break as well. Are there any other matters that we need to address?
Nothing from the state, Judge.
Not from the defense this time, Your Honor.
Please report back by 1:15 as well. At that time, we will continue with Sergeant Corbitt's examination. After this portion of the examination, Ms. Dugan, will the state's direct be coming to a conclusion?
Will you repeat that, Judge?
After this part of the direct examination, will the direct be coming to a conclusion of Sergeant Corbitt?
I would say I have maybe 30 minutes left, 30 to 45 minutes.
Very well. Sergeant, enjoy your lunch as well. This might be a record, 2 breaks.
Could be. Thanks, sir.
We'll see if we can get you off the stand before we rest for the evening. 1:15. Enjoy your break, everyone.
Thanks, sir.